Today, I get a chance to talk to somebody whose work I've been following for a while. It's really interesting stuff. His name's Sam Battle, but you probably know him best as the person behind the video series called Look Mom, No Computer. If you haven't seen it, put down the podcast, go watch it, because you're going to want to understand what we're talking about as we're talking through these things. It's amazing. He does a lot of really great DIY stuff. He puts himself in the path of danger sometimes for the good of the synth community. So with that, I'm going to say hi to Sam. Hey, Sam, how's it going?
Hello, Darwin. How are you doing? All
I'm
good?
I'm great. Hey, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to me and taking the time out of your video schedule because you've been putting out a lot of material lately. It's really neat.
Yeah, it's been quite busy.
Yeah, I'm going to have you start off by telling people who might not be familiar with your work a little bit about what it is.
Okay. I'm Look Mum No Computer. Well, my name's Sam, but Look Mum No Computer. And basically, I just make a lot of machines that I try to make them, quite strange and a little bit out there, and then also perform music with them, along with a lot of other hardware and just music equipment in general.
Yeah, it's some crazy stuff. I know that the thing that caught that first caught my attention in your work was something called a synth bike, which was somehow the perfect combination of a synthesizer and bicycle. I remember that when they came out, it like popped up on my Facebook feeds. It was on Synthtopia. It was all over the place. It was clearly like, the universe wanted me to see this video, right? From there, then I ran across something like a Jacob's Ladder drum machine is one I remember. The fidget spinner oscillator LFO thing was another. And you just keep on coming up with these kind of improbable but fun and funny kind of devices. What got you started on that path?
Oh, on the making things. So basically, with electronics, I started with circuit bending when I was about 15 or 16. I found some videos on the internet and I just went, whoa, what the heck is this stuff? like it was like there was lots of people talking about, making a machine do things that it wasn't supposed to do is kind of like going into another dimension or something wacky like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm up for this, because I was playing guitar and I was getting bored of, those chords and playing Iron Maiden solos and all that. So I needed a bit of a change. So I got out. I went down to the charity shop, which I think in America is called a thrift store, but they're called charity shops over here. I don't know. Or car boot sale. Have you heard that before?
That's actually similar to what we would call a garage sale, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I go over to those and picked up some toys, tried to mess around with them like I saw in the videos, and fried them all. And it was a very sad experience because none of it worked.
The thing that I loved, you had actually one video in particular that's sort of like a walkthrough of your modular. And I was particularly taken by your approach to building modular. One of the things I would say that we generally see in the modular world is that it's very much kind of like a consumerist thing, right? It's like you get on some website and you go through all of the fabulous modules and you pick up a system and then you go deeply into debt to buy a whole bunch of stuff and then you buy and sell for the rest of time. You've taken a completely different approach, which is like I found some pieces of wood, I used them to make a case. Happened to find some scrap metal that was all uniform in size, so that's going to be the size of my modules, and you just kind of took it from there, right?
Yeah. Well, when I started making actual proper modular synth stuff, I just had absolutely no cash, no expendable income whatsoever. So I had to find a way around of making it happen. So I just, switched straight away to beans on toast and went down to a local industrial estate where I knew there was like a sheet metal and acrylic cutting place. And I just, lo and behold, found loads of 20 centimeter high by 10 centimeter like pieces of metal and plastic. So that kind of justified making modules that size, which I think was a blessing in disguise because there's lots of space to get your hands in and twist them around, and it's metric as well. So You know,
Right.
you could just put it together like Lego blocks, like loads of boxes.
Sure. Now this the size of that size is fairly big. So that's like almost as big as a Moog, like the 5U Moog style stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's slightly smaller than 5U and I guess slightly bigger than 4U.
Okay.
So it just sits in the middle. And I didn't even know what size like 5U and 4U were because I'd never seen them in real life, so I'd have absolutely no idea.
So when you're building these modules up, then are you making stuff from breadboard and scratch? Are you getting DIY PCBs that you're building out, or are you repurposing other modules and kind of hacking them into your own? How do what's behind the panel on these things?
Well, like those, all of those things that you just said, it's pretty much all of them.
Ah,
I mean, it mainly started with strip board and proto board because I didn't even know of any websites that you could get these kits and stuff and PCB boards
hmm.
and even PCB boards like they're a bit of a cost. So I just made circuits, looked on forums and just found circuits and then adjusted them and fiddled around and mixed them all together. And then later on, I started appreciating a lot of other people's designs and stuff and getting PCBs or even down to, damn, I really want that module, emailing them and kind of kindly asking for, a populated Eurorack PCB that I can put behind a large panel.
That would be important too to try and limit the amount of surface mount soldering you'd have to do too. That's
Yeah,
that's the thing that kills me with Eurorack stuff is if you're doing DIY, everyone just assumes, well, get one of those little microscope things that fits on your eye and get ready for a challenge. And I'm just like, oh, life is too short for me to solder SMT stuff. I can't
yeah,
do it.
yeah. I know. I mean, I struggle a bit, quite a bit as well. But I have made some surface mount stuff, and surprisingly, even though I still have the dread thinking about it at the start, it's actually quite quicker. It's quite a bit quicker when you get in the movement of it. But still, I've made a couple of big mistakes before with those large ST chips that cost about £10 each, and
Yeah.
if you fry one of those, that's quite an expense.
That's another day of beans, right? Beans and
Yeah,
bread.
beans and bread just gone down the drain. Oh God. In fact, that's more like a week of beans and bread.
Yeah, good point. Now, the other thing that I noticed when you did your walkthrough on your system is that a lot of things you've embedded Arduinos in them, either to work as sort of like MIDI to analog converters, or as like interesting timing tools, or whatever. How did you decide to get into the Arduino thing, and is that just a comfort area for you?
Yeah, Arduino is very much a comfort area, basically because I've had an Arduino for about 5 years. I think I got the first one for Christmas, like yeah, about 5 years ago, and I just didn't stop. I thought it was amazing because it was like at school we had this thing called Lego Mindstorms.
Hmm.
I don't know whether you know that, which is like Lego
Yeah,
Technics that you plug into your computer, and
right.
it's kind of like that. And I started learning code and all that jizz jazz. I mean, I'm by no means a coder. I don't know anything, but I can keep on typing away until something works. I mean, it takes, a lot of all-nighters to do that, scratching some heads, but you do get there eventually. And it's basically, I use them basically because you can literally just have an Arduino on a strip board behind a panel. You don't really need any other pieces of components, so it's just a very easy way of making a module.
Yeah, it's actually kind of convenient that a typical Arduino works on 5 volts. That's a pretty useful voltage. 0 to 5 volts is pretty useful for a lot of modular functions.
Well, I mean, it's useful for most, even pitch-based things, because
Right.
a 0 to 5 volts, that's still 5 octaves.
Yeah, 5-octave range. Now, when one of the things I noticed is when you went through your system on the video, you kind of went through the modular, and that was interesting. It was all, this kind of interestingly hand hacked kind of stuff. But then when you show the bigger picture of your studio, you have a couple of commercial synths. You seem to really like the Arturia interfaces like the BeatStep Pro and stuff like that. But I also noticed MS-20-ish stuff all over the place. That seems to be one of the units that you're pretty into. What's the story with the MS-20?
Well, basically, the first ever analog synth that I got. Well, basically, before I got into analog synths, I'm from kind of an age where I didn't have a clue what they were. Like when I was growing up and learning about like synthesis, the only synths that I knew even existed were on Logic as a plugin. I didn't even know, and when I found out there was something else except for a piano and an organ and these things on the computer, it blew my mind. So on eBay, I spent ages trying to find a cheap enough like analog synth, and I managed to track down a broken MS-10,
Uh-huh.
which was great. And I took it apart, I fixed it. I was amazed that I fixed it. I was like, whoa, it works. And then after a while, it wasn't enough. I was like, I wish I'd have another oscillator. So I went to start building an MS-20 clone made from a lot of random schematics on the internet. They weren't even MS-20 based. There was just loads of stuff. As long as it looked like an MS-20 and worked like an MS-20, I was kind of, happy with it. But that kind of didn't really work. It works, but it doesn't really work. It's very you have to hit it a few times to even stay in tune. But then yeah, and then later on, I finally managed to find a MS-20 for cheap enough, because this was before the MS-20 Mini came out. I think this was
Oh, okay.
2012. 2012 we're talking, and the MS-20 Mini came out in what, 2013, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's interesting though that that would have been the jump in because that doesn't follow the standard 1 volt per octave pitch range. So how do you integrate that with the rest of your stuff? Or do you not
well,
bother?
I don't bother at the minute. The funny thing is, like, you can actually, which way around is it? You can actually control the MS-20 with 1 volts per octave. All you have to do is just attenuate it, add an
Oh,
attenuator,
right. Okay.
and it's quite simple. But it's still not 100%, because you've got to be really fiddly with the fingers. But I don't tend to plug it in. I mean, I liked MS-20 stuff before I got into modular,
Sure.
really.
Well, the other thing that I liked about seeing you play with the MS-20, and it came up in your when you did the fidget spinner oscillator thing,
Yeah.
was using the frequency to voltage conversion stuff, which is, it doesn't work the way they imagined it to, but it
Yeah.
works in a pretty damn fun way, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to remember how I plugged that in. I think I was using it as an envelope follower, and yes, like just taking the wave that the fidget spinner was spinning at and just turning it into a bit of a pew pew.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that fidget spinner thing was so funny. Like I was going to the post office and I saw them for sale, and I was like, I hate these damn fidget spinners. And I just thought, wait a sec. Well, I mean, the people love them, and so I just bought them, and then like a couple of days later, just super glued them onto a panel, and lo and behold, it worked.
Yeah, well, dude, tell me, I was blown away the other day. I went over to Modular Grid. I was like relaying out one of my systems, and they kind of show this thing of like the latest modules that people have added to the system, and there you go, there was a fidget spinner module sitting right on Modular Grid. I was like, oh my god, now he's starting to influence the world.
Yeah, no, a friend sent me a picture of that, or a link, or from Modular Grid, and yeah, I was half chuffed about somebody taking the influence and doing it, and then the half is like, blooming heck, I hope nobody's bringing that out, because who really needs a fidget spinner in their modular?
That's
Probably a lot
right.
of
Yeah.
people.
Well, it's I remember at one point seeing somebody had made a module like out of the motor out of a hard drive too. So I guess there's always some reason to make something, but
Yeah, and that was Gieski's, I think you
maybe so.
pronounce his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Yes, he's an amazing that he's an
He's done some
amazing.
crazy stuff. I had
Yeah.
some drum modules of his that were just inexplainable and wonderful at the same time.
Were they the sound meters that were hitting piezo speakers or something like that?
No, it was just some little bizarro circuit, but
Mm.
I don't know. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But looking at the bigger picture of your system, I mean, you have all kinds of stuff. You have Game Boys. You've got you've got pedals. You actually do vocals, which kind of blows my mind. I can't imagine anyone who does electronic music actually being willing to do vocals. But there you go. You're into it. You seem to sort of like not limit yourself. I mean, what I thought was cool is when you were going through your synth, you had kind of this thing that was triggered sample player for doing acapellas and different sounds. You had the bent circuitry, you had analog stuff, you were doing looping. You seem to be willing to do like almost anything, well, except for the computer, right?
Yeah, I kind of shot myself in the foot with that because I'd love to use a computer every so often.
Yeah.
Yeah, just try and do as much as I can. Like I don't think there should be any limits or any rules, even though like I have named myself Look Mum No Computer, which is a funny story actually because me and the drummer that I've done a video with in the past, we went and played a few shows in Peterborough, not Peterborough, in England last week. We had about 4 or 5 shows, and we managed to leave the practicing and working out what the heck to do right to the last minute. We only had 2 days until the show started, and we were like, right, what are we going to do? And we suddenly came up very quickly with a very large problem, which was basically he has this click that he likes, and which also has these 1, 2, 3, 4 chorus go and stuff like that, things to
Okay.
remind him. So he doesn't have to be as practiced as you have to be. So
Right.
you can pick up things quite quickly. But the problem with that is I can't put those into my sample player on my modular, for instance, because then I can't use the sample player for something else. And it was that kind of time where we couldn't order anything else. And I didn't want to take a synth bike apart that had one of those sample players in it and stuff like that. So we had to really badly get a laptop and use it for his click. So he had a laptop sitting next to him whilst he was playing the click to him. So yeah, I'm living a lie.
I guess you are. So did he have to like hide it in a bag or something so nobody would see it?
Oh, man, I felt way too guilty. To be honest, right at the start of every single show, I owned up and I said, it's funny, blah, blah, blah. Because, the worst thing would be hiding it and then somebody finds
Yeah,
out.
right. Well, you could just change the name of the show. Look, Mom.
Look, there's a computer in a bag.
Right.
Can you see it? What's that? Where's Wally? Like, where's the Apple Mac?
So let's talk about the performance thing because it's hard for me to imagine a performance except you were nice enough to post up a video of you working with the drummer doing a song, uh, which kind of blew my head off. It was hard for me to imagine what that would be like, and there you were in full glory with your MS-20 and your hand-built modular and some kind of chrome globe thing that you would go and stroke every once in a while, and a microphone, and you were on it, and it was just the two of you doing a gig, which seemed like an awful lot of work. Tell me a little bit about performance and what that performance works look like.
Well, for a start, like that video, it was we did that one-off song for the video for the performance. So at that time, all he had in his ears was a noise going into a VCA that was like sending a steady click to his ears, so he could stay in time with the clock of the synth. Well, we ended up running through that song about 10 times because we didn't practice. I kind of like made up a random riff in the morning and I kept on messing up because I forgot like where that big capacitive touch globe thing was. The funny thing is about that capacitive touch thing is it was working in my bedroom. Like I was able to make it work, but when I took it to the church, which is just 5 minutes down my road, so we just took it all in the morning, it started buzzing randomly on its own. So I had to gaffer tape a wire from it down to my ankle and tie it around my ankle,
Oh my god.
so it would work with
Oh
me.
jeez. So it was grounded to you, right?
Yeah, so it was grounded to
Unreal.
me, so it would work. The actual gigs last week, which was the first time we actually played a proper set of gigs with drums and synths, it was just a lot more practiced. We had the songs we knew we were performing, and just playing a portable modular, which is not very portable. There's still a heck of a lot of it, and there's an MS-20 and a Juno, and then a lot of pedals, and I'm singing, and then the vocals are going into a lot of different effects like
Okay.
pitches and stuff like that. So there's a lot of crap that we've got to lug around, but
It's a lot of crap, but it's also I watched you do that performance, and granted it was staged at a church, but at the same time it's still just two people making a lot of noise, and you were like flying around between singing and tweaking the modular and playing other things and playing with the capacitive ball. It was it looked manic at best. How do you keep that up for a whole performance? Isn't
Uh,
it
just
exhausting?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, we've been performing in and out of bands, both of us, me and the drummer, for 5 or 6 years in different projects, and it's a lot of practice. Like, played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gigs.
Sure.
Headlined in Glastonbury, actually, in one of the not in a stage in Glastonbury. I say not the main stage.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. But yeah, it just takes a bit of. It's more about the songs, and then you add a little bit of a fancy piece of technology in one of the songs and then another one in another, if you see what I mean.
Sure, sure. One of the things I would think of with that kind of setup and with sort of like the fluid use of technology, I'm curious how much of this is improvisational and how much of it is really strictly measured out. Because you said he's using this click track that kind of tells him when to do a course and stuff. And I can see where
Yeah,
that's really helpful. And it probably helps you because he's then, through his playing, giving you cues about when you're flipping to a chorus or whatever.
yeah,
But I would still think with all of this gear around you and you kind of like standing in the light, I would think that you have to also give yourself some leeway to be a little bit more, I'm gonna take a little break and just play with the big capacitive ball for a while, or just gonna wank on the MS-20 while I try and regain my wits or something like that. Do you give yourself
yeah.
much space for improv?
It depends. I've got usually two different styles of gigs. There's usually the kind of improv DJ kind of thing where I'm just, you're making, there isn't a set of songs. You're just, improvising on Beat Step Pros, just you doing a live thing and live improv, and you could do whatever the heck you want then. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one style. But
Sure.
this kind of thing, we had set songs and we had set parts, and there was a couple of parts where we were able to extend and unextend depending how interested the crowd were, but it's quite set what we were doing in that kind of thing. It's not really a set because like modular and usual traditional modular like performances, they're very improvised and stuff.
Right.
But I come from a very band song background, and I'm kind of like trying not to stick to any rules, so I'm trying to take the modular stuff with this kind of attitude
Right.
and just playing proper songs with it, if you see what I mean. And then there's a lot of
Sure.
improv times where they can sound different. You just
Right.
fiddle around, plug in different things in.
But the song structure is still pretty set. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty set. I mean, there's a couple that I said that you can extend depending how it plays out,
Mm-hmm.
like solo parts and stuff.
Because you mentioned it here, having a background doing song-oriented stuff. One of the things I like doing in my podcast is talking to people about their beginner story, their background story, and how they got to be the artists and the makers they are. And you have such an interesting combination of things that you do. You've kind of got this hackerific builder side to you. I would say that you have a very strong design sense, and that the things that you do all kind of have a through line from a design standpoint. You're a singer, musician that an accomplished one and one with a long history in that. What's your background like that brings all of these things together? Where did you come from? Was how did you grow up to be who you are?
I have no idea. No, I'm joking. No, I'm trying to work it out. Like, I came from a family where my dad was always underneath the car, like fixing things. So I think the building kind of thing came from the fact that I saw my dad building and fixing things, and I thought, yeah, I can do that. I can build stuff. I could, you could just, be a bit thrifty with ideas, and then just the musical stuff. I've just been playing guitar. I'm mainly a guitarist. That's the funny thing. I finally said bye bye to the guitar and look, mum, no computer. But before, just that's what I was trying to pursue, is just the music career and songwriting career, because I still do every so often a lot of songwriting for other artists, and it's quite pop, so it's
Hmm.
quite funny. But yeah, it's just I'm trying to do as much random stuff as I can, purely because I haven't got much of a concentration span.
Did you get any formal training in any of this stuff? Whether it's electronics or music or art or any of it?
I did chemistry for about 6 months at uni.
Okay, so that explains the drugs. What?
Well, Funny thing is, man, I'm quite straight down the line with any of that stuff. I'm very straight edge, if you will. I mean, I like beer, but that's about it. But no, I mean, I've done guitar lessons, I guess,
Uh-huh.
and a couple of singing lessons at school. But with the electronics, it's merely just take stuff apart. If it breaks, that's a shame.
Yeah, yeah.
Just just very curious, I guess.
So now curiosity would explain then too some of the instruments that you've built. So we talked a little bit about the synth bike. We've mentioned it, and for people who haven't seen that, could you like really quickly explain how that thing works?
Okay, well, there's four synth bikes now,
Oh
but
dear.
yeah, yeah. Like the first instance of the synth bike, I just had an epiphany on when I was on the tube, I think, like the London Underground, and it was just like, yes, this was about a year ago, I think, and I was like, yes, this sounds like a good idea. I'm going to go and do it. And it's basically just the main concept is you're pedaling, and the quicker you pedal, the quicker the music goes.
Hmm.
That's it, and it's just a magnet on a wheel. Or actually, the first ever synth bike, it was a credit card on a wheel that was hitting a switch. But yeah, and then I think the one that came to prominence was the one that people know the most is probably the Synth Bike Mark II, which is a rally chopper that has been in the family, and
Right.
I've built a very large, like quite involved uh beat groove machine, I guess, into the handlebars.
It's just one of those things that was almost like made for getting YouTube views, right? It's
Yeah.
great looking. It's got a great title. The whole thing really kicked in. Is that kind of what really kicked you into speed in terms of doing the YouTube channel?
Um, well, yeah, but basically a lot of things coincided with that point. Like I was like my last band fell apart. I was in a lot of problems with what I was planning on doing with life and stuff, and I figured I should just change it up for a year and see where I get to. And so somebody said, "Oh, you should speed up on the videos. You're only doing like one every blue moon, like one every month or something." Like
Hmm.
so now I try and do one a week pretty much.
There's some neat stuff has come out of that. That's for sure. Of all the things that you've put together, what is the one that's your favorite? First of all.
Ah, there's one that's coming out very soon that I think is my favorite. It's burnt my eyebrows off already, but I can't talk about it. For the stuff that are out, like I mean, I have to say my favorite ones are usually the ones that are still working now, and that's
Hmm.
usually the synth bikes. They still work. I really like the Jacob's Ladder approach, but that really hurt my eyes. I
Dude,
kind of realized
that
that.
I have to tell you that there are very few videos that I've ever seen that have scared me. But the one that really spooked me was you had pulled out the power converter out of the microwave and you were like leaning over, like getting,
Ugh.
and then your necklace like slipped out from under your shirt and like went across the thing. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to see him burn his neck off. Right.
Yeah. Oh well, I don't think you would have seen that because it probably wouldn't have got edited.
Yeah, right. Probably.
I'd have I'd have been in hospital like oh no in a morgue.
The police would have seen that video, right?
Yeah, they'd have been like, oh, we got a cooked man. But yeah, needless to say, I've had a lot of close calls, and I need to I take safety quite seriously.
Hmm.
But there's sometimes that there's things that I overlook, like necklaces. Sometimes that has happened. I don't wear the necklace anymore. When I've got a shorter necklace actually, and it's because I don't want it hitting anything and then frying my neck and then killing me
Right.
because it probably would.
Yeah, well, the 2000 volts sitting in a capacitor was that I saw that happen and I just literally jumped out of my seat.
Yeah.
That really gave me a scare. But of the stuff that you've done, what was the most ridiculous? What would you think is the most ridiculous? I think the Jacob Ladder is up there, but you've done a lot of different things. What
Well,
other
yeah.
like really ridiculous stuff have you done?
Well, I mean, I'm really annoyed that I can't say about this one that's coming up because it's bloody ridiculous. I think the most ridiculous right, for now is most definitely the Jacob's Ladders because they're the most dangerous. But there's
Several times you talked about doing a bouncy castle synth.
yeah,
Did you ever do that?
I've got the bouncy castle. I've
You too.
Yeah, it's really annoying because my room is slowly filling up, and I mean, I've got a very lucky situation right now. Basically, I live in a shut down school, and it's kind of like there's this scheme in England. They're called guardianship schemes, and what it basically is a business closes down, and instead of getting a security, they let people live in it to make sure that nobody squats in it.
Oh, I was going to ask because in your videos, sometimes you get a little wide pan and you get this sense of working in a really big room. And
Yeah,
I think it's hard for most people to imagine, especially when you kind of talk about really working off of a reduced budget, right? It's
yeah,
hard to imagine, most people are like, oh my God, I have to like squeeze all my stuff into an old broom closet. That's the only place I get to work. And so to see you in this big spot, which is perfect for the kind of experimenting that you do. But I was wondering how that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's just a lot cheaper than living anywhere else,
Oh, sure.
purely because the living conditions are quite substandard. I mean, there's no hot water. The shower's literally just a cubicle like in the corner, and there's no kitchen.
Oh,
So
geez.
it's all a bit. But the most important thing to me is that I've got space to be able to create things,
Right.
and the rest of it can come second to that, if you see what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, sure.
So.
How quick has this setup expanded for you? So like when we see you kind of like surrounded by the modular and the Game Boys and all this kind of stuff, how long have you been building these things? When did you kind of
Um,
start that?
I think I started mainly building up these kind of things. The new kind of things, they're like all of that stuff that you see, like maybe in the actual studio shot, maybe
Right.
only 3 years, but
Okay.
I've been doing this for maybe 6 years, so it's not very long, but it's quite a bit of time. And like since I've moved into this place, which was about a year and a half ago, it's kind of like a goldfish in a bigger pond. You kind of grow into it, which I'm
Right.
very scared when I get kicked out of this place, which I don't know when it will happen yet. I mean, I've got to find somewhere to put all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, so you said that this is a school that what, they just basically shut it down for a new school or something like that?
They shut it down because it was breaking the law for
Oh.
some. There was some very dodgy. There's actually a panorama about it, which is a BBC documentary series.
Oh
it's
no.
like it's like Crime Watch, and there's
Oh my
videos of it.
God.
Yeah,
All right.
but
Well, that
yeah,
needs to be part of the story then too, as you're living in the middle of a crime watch zone.
yeah,
That's
and it's
awesome.
closed down. But yeah, now I live. There's about 10 of us that live here, and we've
Uh-huh.
all got a classroom each, so it's
Oh,
pretty good.
that's wild. That's really interesting. Now, one of the other things I'm curious about is and I'm curious because I think that this is something that we all kind of wonder about, which is people who are very active on YouTube and stuff. You have started a Patreon
Yeah,
entity, and you have support from the user base, right?
yeah,
And one of the neat things is the way that you kind of talked about how you were going to support your supporters, right? You talked about doing a zine. You talked
yeah.
about potentially doing some devices for people and stuff. Um,
hmm
how long have you been doing the Patreon thing first?
I've been doing the Patreon for about 6 months now, and
Yeah,
that I've quickly after that realised that the actual building things for people was it just wasn't going to make sense, and I had to
right.
quickly nip that in the because it was just too time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very good at that. I mean, I actually it didn't even get past the first one. I ended up frying the design,
Nice.
and I just it was just too stressful. Like I had too many sleepless nights trying to work out what the hell to do. I was like, oh god, I've got in too deep with this one.
Well, you know what though? Actually, like sending a note to your supporters saying, "Well, I fried a circuit for you." that's
Oh yeah.
probably that's probably a great email to get too. That's
Well,
a thing.
yeah. I mean, I ended up sending them their money back and stuff. I feel a bit bad
Oh,
about it
really?
all.
Oh, wow.
And
But
but
did
luck,
you?
a couple of them were nice enough to say, "Oh man, just it's
Yeah,
fine,"
yeah.
which I'm very appreciative about.
So, but did you follow through with doing the zine?
Yeah, so I do a zine about every 1 to 1.5 months.
Hmm.
A zine comes out, and the next one's about oscillators. There's just a lot of really simple things in there. It's basically just to, yeah, keep people happy. I put a lot of songs and lots of stems and samples up on the Patreon and talk
Right.
about lots of things and try and live stream. I'm trying to keep it up there because it seems like a good viable source of getting a bit of extra money to fund projects, really.
Right. Yeah, and it's why I wanted to ask because the thing that you do, I mean, if nothing else, it requires money. You have to pay for, at the very least, you have to pay for solder and panels, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, there, some of your designs. I mean, getting something that's with an Arduino that's driving a bunch of outputs or an SD card or whatever, that takes time and that takes some money to do it. And I was wondering, what mechanisms you have to support that. And I was curious about the Patreon. Do you feel like that's a successful means to do it?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that it will be more of a. Hopefully, I'm trying to work out ways of trying to get a bit more support from people and working out ways of doing that because it would just free up and like make it a lot less stressful and at the same time making so I can concentrate a lot more on building things
Right.
and
Right.
making better videos and stuff. But right now, I mean, I do just a lot of I do some advert music
Hmm.
every so and then library music and songwriting and producing records.
Well, it's cool though because you've found a way to make music a thing at a time when it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, I'm by no means got any money, but I'm luckily at a state where right now I don't have to work that much at all, so it's quite good. I'm quite pleased to be able to concentrate quite a lot of time onto making some crazy things.
Yeah. If you could do anything to make things easier or better or to be more productive at music, what is it that you would do that's different from what you're doing now?
That's a good question, actually.
Maybe use a computer?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do use a
I
computer.
know. I was
I
just
mean,
kidding,
it's
man.
not. I mean, it's not a lie. Like, I mean, like whenever I'm working, it's Logic, Logic, Logic. So
Right.
and stuff like that. And whenever I do these live things, it's I record it in multi-track into a computer anyway, and then just mix it a little bit afterwards.
Have you done any releases? Have you done any
Any
music
release?
releases? Yeah.
Uh, not with Look Mum No Computer, not yet. No, no,
Oh,
nothing
wow.
really. Just a random demo mixtape that I put up a couple of weeks ago. It's just 4 songs that were just demos, and I've got a lot of songs in the bag, but I'm just trying to work out what the heck to do with
I
music
see.
wise. I don't
Interesting.
have any. Like, I'm trying to find management that
Yeah, yeah.
know where to point me and stuff because I'm very unorganized.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know, though. It seems like you can't be that unorganized to get to be as productive as you are. You seem to get a lot of work done, man.
Yeah, I guess yeah, but that's down to. I mean, I get obsessive, and the problem with obsessive is you can't concentrate on anything else until one thing's finished. So
Right,
you know,
right. As far as your music goes, I mean, one of the things we hear a lot in the videos is your music tends to sort of have an industrial edge to it. I would say, but
yeah.
also little touches of EDM. Is that what you would consider sort of like the music in your head?
Uh, I don't know really. That's a good question because I don't tend to listen to electronic music surprisingly.
Hmm.
So I just kind of make whatever's coming out. I don't really think like try and make something sound like something. I kind of just do it until it sounds right, I guess.
Sure, sure. That's interesting though because actually that seems to align with a bunch of other stuff because if you take a look at your modular rig, it's not really like the typical voicing of everyone else's modular rig, right? And it kind of
Mhm.
sounds like a lot of times you didn't really give a crap what anyone else is doing. You just, between the combination of what you could get your hands on and what you were interested in, you just followed that, right?
Yeah,
It,
just get on with
it's
it.
like musically, you happen to have electronic instruments at hand, so you're doing electronic music. You don't feel like you have to necessarily run around and sound like either orbital or skinny puppy. You're just doing whatever's inside your head, and that seems like it seems like your whole life is kind of aligning towards thing of where I just have a way I want to do it, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that way is because it's somewhere in my brain, but that part of the brain isn't talking to the other part of the
Uh,
brain. So I'm just letting it do its thing, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah. So what do you imagine for the future then? What do you think are the next turns?
Oh
Uh,
man,
Obviously, you're
yeah,
going to continue doing the videos. It sounds like you've got some great plans ahead for that. What
yeah.
else do you want to try and accomplish?
Oh well, I feel bad about not being able to reveal that crazy dangerous one, but I've just in the short term, I got a Nokia 3310 synth being made right now. I'm building that. That's going to be quite amazing, but
Wow.
that's not for future stuff. I'm looking forward to that, and a 150 oscillator synth. That's going to be quite a ball ache. I haven't. I'm making that. I'm making that at the minute. Like I was breadboarding it just as you called. So the future, it's a strange one. I would love to just be able to. I mean, like a dream, like anybody, is just just keep on making crazy stuff, and hopefully it's a logarithmic curve, and it just gets crazier and more outlandish. Since I've only been doing it for a year, looking in next year, hopefully I'll look back and there'll be just a heck of a lot more interesting pieces of art. And I'm not really, I wouldn't consider myself an artist, but maybe being, getting some in some exhibitions or something might be cool. And
Yeah.
also playing the music. I mean, I'll just, I've never been successful at it yet, but just having some sort of successful release would be great.
Right.
So like trying to build it all and getting the music going, and then also just having some funny videos that make people laugh, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you say that you don't necessarily consider yourself an artist, because when I take a look at the broad picture of your work, that's exactly how I think of you. I think of you
Okay.
as an artist, and your art happens to be a bunch of different kind of related things, but it really kind of has a voice that's kind of unique to you, which is sort of like the heart of being an artist, right?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, I always thought I was a musician, and yeah, recently I've guessed it is expressing myself as an artist. I mean, my girlfriend, she's an artist, and she does artist art. She's doing a PhD in fine art, but with a process of astronomy. And
Oh,
focus. But that's like I never feel like an artist when I'm with her because she's
yeah,
doing it
right,
properly.
right. There
So
you
I don't
go.
know whether I should call myself one.
I got it. Sure. Well, but the one question I have then, given the kind of thing you do you ever worry about like running out of ideas?
No, because when I always find myself like whenever I'm in a time of doubt, like I'm like, oh God, I've done like what have I done for the last year, and I'm running out of ideas. I always suddenly after that I always come up with an idea. I tell you the best way of doing it. I call it the epiphany shower. You feel like you've got no ideas left, and then you go in the shower, and then suddenly boom, there's an idea.
Oh, that's great.
So hopefully not. We'll see. You never
Yeah.
know. It might happen.
Well, keep on taking them showers, man. It sounds like a winner.
Be clean and full of
Clean
ideas.
and full of ideas. It's the perfect combo.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you so much for the time. It's been great chatting with you, and great hearing more about both your ideas, but your approach to things. It's really cool, and hopefully we can get people digging your stuff. What's the best, other than just looking for Look Mum No Computer on YouTube? Where else would you like to send people?
The same with Facebook as well. Look Mum No Computer on Facebook or lookmumnocomputer.com, which
There
I'm
you go.
still working on,
All right.
but you can check it out.
And then you have the Patreon as well, which hopefully we can help some people come out
Oh,
and support you through.
well, it'd be amazing because yeah, just the more people would mean just the more ability to make more crazy stuff.
Indeed,
But
indeed.
that is just patreon.com/look mum no computer.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, oh
And
man, I wanna thank you so much for spending the time then. And with that, I'll let you go on and have the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
thank you very much, Darwin.
All right. Nice.
Okay, see you
All right,
later.
bye. All right. Well, hopefully you understand exactly how much fun that was. What a hoot. guy's amazing. If you haven't checked it out yet, you need to. He just gave all the locations to find stuff. Look him up. No Computer is the place. It's hilarious. Also help him out on Patreon if you think you can. Other than that, I'm going to let you go for a few days here. Keep an eye peeled if you aren't on part of the Facebook thing. I don't know what it's called. For Art, Music, Technology, please do join up. Otherwise, drop me a line if you have any questions, comments, ideas, whatever. That's ddg at cycling74.com or darwin.gross@gmail.com. Always happy to hear from you. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go. Catch you later. Bye.